in the city of Los Angeles. Welcome to another episode of Drug Leaders to Businessmen podcast. This is your host, Duane Cofield. Hope all is well. Beautiful day. We're getting some rain today, so just wanted to acknowledge our listeners from all over the world. Let me get my mic together. Sounds like I'm a little bit off cue. But yeah, man, we are moving along. Hopefully, you guys have been tapping in for the journey. Man, we are moving. Episode last week, we kind of low key just went over our episode 100 without what a whole lot of hoopla, which is fine. We didn't make a whole lot of noise, but we should have because we've been kicking butt and taking names. So, like always, if this is your first time checking in, make sure you put it in the chat below where you checking in from, your city. Those who are listening in on the replay, um, man, we appreciate you. Make sure you put a acknowledgement or a tap in for the review. We certainly appreciate that. Hopefully, my mic is kind of clear for y'all. Um, that I'm in enough stereo where you can hear me. Yeah, man, some mistakes and patience. This is episode number 11 of season 4. Mistakes and patience. What's going on, Karan? Appreciate you tapping in, homeboy. Um, this is part of the success process, dog. Mistakes and patience. Mistakes being that we're going to constantly make them the entire time we're doing this, right? If we're not making mistakes, we're actually not moving anywhere. Who's perfect out the gate, right? Somebody who's extremely lucky or somebody who hasn't met adversity yet. But there's no such thing as somebody who doesn't make mistakes, right? There's no such thing as a perfect being. So there's no problem with trying to strive for achievement. I'm not saying anything's wrong with that. But what I am saying is understand this is a process. And just like flour's part of cookies, just like butter's part of cookies and cakes and all that, mistakes and patience are necessary, absolutely necessary and part of the process. So we're going to talk about that, man. I'm constantly making mistakes, right? My son just made a mistake. And he made 15 other ones after that because he lied to me over and over again. And I'm like telling him, I'm like, hey, man, I already know the truth or else I wouldn't be sweating you like this. And he's like, I'm going to continue to keep lying. And I'm like, man, listen, on the 10th time that I'm asking him, I'm like telling him, I'm like, man, this is 10 times. It's 10 ass whoopings I'm going to give you. And he just continued to go on. And I'm like, listen, man. And finally, he finally admitted. And I'm like, you just want punishment? You're going to make mistakes, dog. But the thing about mistakes is admit to them, right? If you do something wrong, admit to it. And that's even to yourself, right? Being true to yourself. Saying, hey, man, I'm going to make mistakes. You know what I'm saying? What's going on, John? Appreciate you. I know you've been boxing, homeboy. But I'm going to make mistakes, right? I'm going to make blunders. You know, hopefully it's not to the point to where you get all day, right? This is what this is what we've been doing our entire lives, right? Is experimentation and trying to figure shit out, right? How else do you figure stuff out? What's going on, Veronica? You in Barstow? I didn't know y'all was in Barstow. Shout out to Barstow. But think about that, right? Where do we go where nobody makes mistakes, where you have to be perfect, right? Gymnasts, perhaps, but where do they make their mistakes? In the gym, right? In practice. So when it looks like we're out here being perfect, then nobody sees us actually making the mistakes in practice. So when you see me out here and I got business, I got this and this and that, nobody's talking about how I messed off money. Not necessarily by, just tricking off, but at the same time, more or less by making mistakes. And I tell people all the time, like when you lose money, man, these are lessons. Not even mistakes. These are actually lessons, right? And some are more expensive than others. So it's up to us to really take advantage of that and say, some I'm moving along. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to be patient with myself. If I'm not making mistakes, then there is no progress. The one thing that people do with mistakes that I'll say cost them the most is that they think their mistakes are fatal, so they'll lie about it. As an example with my son, right? He thinks the mistake is fatal. It's not fatal. How you handle it is fatal, can be fatal, right? So you're sitting there not telling me the truth. You're not telling yourself the truth. There's a lot of mistakes we make in life, and we don't want to tell ourselves the truth, so we keep trying to hide it and mask it. And does it get any better? Absolutely not. The best way and the fastest way to address any type of mistake is to just do that. Be fast and address it. Everybody's human, man. Humans make mistakes. Dogs make mistakes. They bite the wrong people sometimes. I'm not even professing to say you're never gonna make mistakes. What's going on, Joe? Appreciate you tapping in, man. I believe y'all in Arizona, right? But we're going to do that, right? And accept it and embrace it, right? Not fatal. But what do? We try to, I didn't do that. Wasn't me. Responsibility is something that people try to shy away from a lot of times, right? And that comes with mistakes. I don't want to accept responsibility. Why? Because it's embarrassing. Why is it embarrassing? Why is it embarrassing to make a mistake? To admit that you messed up, to fall on your face in front of people because you want everybody to think you perfect? Who's perfect? I realize the more that I'm attacked, the more that people find fault in what I do. That's cool. That works. It's part of my process. Which leads me to the second part. When you're prone to making mistakes, you have to be patient with yourself. Like we do with babies. Babies, when they're first walking, right? They don't have that shit together at all, right? They fumbling, stumbling over stuff, hard stepping. They ain't figured it out yet. They ain't figured out curves and distance, and they constantly fall. And they do the drunk stepping, and they fall on their face. Mistakes, right? My son's making mistakes. He lighters. I know what boys do. That's what I keep trying to tell him. I'm like, listen, man, I was a little boy. Everything you're thinking about doing, we tried it too, which is why I'm telling you don't do it. But in the back of my mind, I know you're going to do it. And what's the best way we learn? By making mistakes. By making mistakes. We didn't learn that fire was hot until we really, really touched it. We had some idea that the shit was kind of a little warm, right? We had some idea, a little warm. But it wasn't until we really touched it, that sizzle. And even then, we like, oh, okay, then we touched the iron heat and we felt that kind of heat, right? And we touched the water pipe and we felt that kind of, we like, oh, it's different kind of heats. But all the stuff is hot. So now we're a little bit more cautious when we're around those types of things, right? We're like, oh, hey, be careful when that says hot. If it's steaming, if it looks hot, man. But we didn't know that before, right? Once bitten, twice shy. So a lot of times we have to get bitten first, right? In order to understand, like, hey, man, I'm not going to do that the next time. So mistakes are perfectly fine. I wish somebody would have told me embrace mine a little bit better. You feel what I'm saying? Yeah, the blessing, indeed, there's how else are you going to build on it if I don't make a mistake? You know how many mistakes I made in the game, trusting Cass, letting Cass around my circle? These were all mistakes that could have been fatal, right? They could have been fatal. But a lot of times God preserves you. He's in the lessons. He's not into trying to curse you. He'll teach you. He'll show you what time it is, and hopefully you pick it up, right? He'll give you an example. And hopefully at that time you pick it up. And again, he's patient with you. He understands you going through a process. He understands you got to learn 2 + 2 before you get to 2 divided by, you know what I'm saying? Whatever the case may be. He understands it. It's a process. It's a learning process. So we're going to make mistakes on paperwork. We're going to buy the wrong car, right? Our first car is usually a mistake, right? I remember I thought I was doing something, right? I went and I brought a bag of cash down and put on a used car. Yeah, right. Run that back. Used Tahoe. And everybody, oh man, they got the Tahoe. And then they switched to Tahoe literally the next year. So my Tahoe looked old instantly. Right? Looked old instantly. Still had a car note. And that cash didn't do anything for me. But we have to make mistakes before we get to that point. Now we know how to go out. Me and my wife went and got a car. We got worked on the financing, right? Because they caught us at a desperate time, trading in that Tahoe, right? Caught us at a desperate time. And mistakes were made. Cost us a lot of money, right? You make the wrong mistake in financing, it can cost you, you got 6 years with that. So that was a mistake. We learned from that. How many relationships we didn't have, right? We're like, I know that was, I know that was a mistake, but we learned from it, right? You don't, there's no regrets, right? You guys seen the butterfly effect. If we go back and try to correct our mistakes, we'll mess up our entire life. Because as the homie said in the chat, man, there's blessings all up in the mistakes, all up in there. We just gotta be able to dissect it out of that, like be able to pay attention to it. Like, okay, this is what I learned from that. I painted this, right? And we didn't really put the tape down, and then I peeled it. Okay, so I learned. I learned from my mistakes, right? Which is a cliche you hear all the time. I learn from your mistakes. There's so much truth in that. Learn from your mistakes. Paperwork, first business. I wanted to. One of my first businesses was a social media marketing firm, right? It wasn't a fatal mistake, but it was a mistake. Why? Because I didn't specialize in an area, right? I was for everybody. And I didn't really understand marketing. I just got my MBA. I thought I knew it all. Didn't really understand that I needed a niche. If I focused specifically on restaurants, I probably would have had way more luck. If I would have focused specifically on hospitals, I would have had way more luck. But how do I know this now? Because of the mistake that I made. Relationships. One of the things that I cherish now are my relationships. Burnt them while I was in the entertainment industry. Not necessarily burned them, but didn't nourish them and cherish them in the way that I should have. What do I do now? Learn from my mistakes. Networking with other professors, getting on more stuff related to academics. So I learned from that, right? So a lot of times what God does is he'll get you to make these mistakes early, right? In preparation for the bigger, larger, more meaningful thing that you're going to do in life. Right? You got to get some things out your system. You may not be mentally ready yet, right? So you're going to make these mistakes, but he doesn't want to make them on the things that really count. So you'll make the mistakes in your early relationships. Like, man, I was on some BS. You know what I'm saying? And you'll from that point on, your relationships from that point on should be gravy, or the one you have, right? Not the many. But that's how we grow as an individual. We learn from our mistakes, right? We put them in a binder and we use them as notes. Okay, we learn that, right? From film, almost like watching film in football. Okay, damn, you went this way. Okay, okay, next time I'm gonna do da. Right? Hindsight's that we always say, if I could go back to my younger self, what would I tell you? I'll tell you to keep making mistakes. Off the bat, man. Keep making mistakes and explore more territory. That's what I would tell my younger self. Keep making mistakes as a part of your process. If you're not making mistakes, then you're not going to succeed. Experimentation is about failure, right? When we talk about lab experiments, things like that, it's about failures, not about the successes, right? Because the successes are minimum when compared to how many times we fail and also how many mistakes we make. We may have one success, man. I got 50 failures though, right? But that one success can take you from to and from, right? That trajectory that we're looking for. So yeah, I'm looking forward to making mistakes. I know I'm gonna make more. I made more mistakes as a parent on my first son than my two smallest kids. But I'm still making mistakes. Why? Because I'm still learning, man. A lot of stuff is new. And when you're out there, which is one of the reasons why a lot of people don't move on stuff, is because they don't want to make mistakes. They're afraid to fail in public. You're more, I don't care what anybody thinks, man. That's BS. When somebody says, I don't care what anybody thinks, man, you just think cap. If you didn't care what anybody thinks, you wouldn't even say it. You dig what I'm saying? But the fact that you're saying it means you really do. And it's almost inhumane not to care what anybody thinks. You care what somebody thinks. Just may not be what, these cats over here, but you care what somebody thinks. Somebody can sting that ass. And I was told a long time ago also with my professor, he said, one of the main people that can penetrate you is your family members, the ones that are closest to you. Right? So yeah, we do care about what people thinks, and that paralyzes us sometimes. So we won't make the move. We won't jump into the business. Oh man, they're gonna think it's stupid. Oh, we won't start the business. Oh man, they said it's gonna fail. All the businesses fail up here. Nah, these cats was on some other stuff, and they didn't have the hand of God on them. So that's the difference between how you and them should walk, right? If you got the hand of God on you, man, everything's gonna go through. Even your mistakes are blessings for you. Jay-Z said, what he say, man, everything is for your good. Everything. No accidents, no nothing. The failures are part of your process for your good. You're gonna learn. And when it really matters, man, you're gonna pass with flying colors. Patience. When we start talking about patience, right? We in speed years. I should be here. Why should you be here? Just because somebody is a prodigy and they graduate high school at 13 doesn't mean that you should or compare your children to prodigies. It's not fair to you. And you don't know what everybody has a blessing and everybody has some things that they may not want everybody to know how. I mean, in terms of faults. So you don't know what their thing is, right? That might be the only thing that they do well. Basketball. My wife had to check me on that the other day. She was like, can't compare your kid to all, you don't know what else they're doing, and he's doing 3 or 4 other things. So this may be the only thing that they do, right? So we always compare ourselves to other people. And we get impatient with our timing, even though it's divine timing, right? This is God instructed, right? Even though it's divine timing, we're still impatient with it. We're still comparing it with American clocks and what our neighbor's timing is about and what our homeboy's timing is about. The only thing we should be comparing ourselves to is our last accomplishment and how we've grown since then, right? What have I done since then? I don't know. Based on, one of the things that one of the sayings that I'm really hitting home with, right, is you are what you read. Right. So I look at all the things, I'm like, man, I made that mistake. Okay, so how can I get better? Right. I've made mistakes as a professor. Come in, not necessarily knowing my stuff, thinking I could wing it, and falling on my face in class. Now I'm way more organized. 5 years in the game, mistakes have already been made. Won't be making them anymore. Not those kind, at least, right? Because if you keep making the same mistake over and over again, you're not paying attention. You keep picking the same people. You keep the same things keep happening to you. One of the things I've noticed about a lot of these youngsters is they don't believe karma's real. I see them throw trash on the floor. I see them dog cats out. I see them scam people. And I'm like, you really don't believe fat meat is greasy, do you? You really don't believe this is going to come back and smack that ass tough, do you? Or you don't care? Or you just think this is the way life is, right? No, 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 no. There's power in both of that. When you have that I don't give a shit attitude and you still doing things like that, like there's no karmic effect, then you really don't get it. You can do positive things. I was telling my wife, man, we was talking about my son. My son does auditions and low entertainment. So does my daughter. And my wife was just talking about shit. We haven't heard from his agent in a while. I was like, yeah. I said, you talking it up. Lo and behold, I got text messages all day today. Boom, 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 from his agent. I'm not saying anything about Brad. Specifically talking about the power of the tongue. That's it. And people will not watch their mouths. Oh man, I ain't never gonna get no money. Man, I'll never hit the lottery. Man, watch it. What? I had to watch my mouth even saying that right now because the universe hears me. It doesn't know if I'm on a podcast or not. It doesn't care. You feel what I'm saying? It does not care. So with that being said, why aren't we paying more attention to what we saying with our words? And why aren't we testing the magic? What are you scared of? Oh man, I'm making a mistake. I'm gonna sound stupid. Do you? I'll tell you what sounds stupid is talking yourself into a negative result. When I hear people saying that, I'm like, oh, you doing yourself. When people say what KILLS them, Like, word? Is that what you're doing? Right? And we don't really, we're not really paying attention to it, or we don't believe that it's real. One of the two. We don't believe that that's actually a real thing that's happening, right? That it's actually going to be that day. We thinking we could just say what we want. God ain't. I go to church, but you know what I'm saying, I talk that shit during the week. Oh, for real? Oh, you don't believe it's real either, huh? You don't actually believe that that's going to actually happen. Interesting. I've seen it with my own eyes. Talk talked ourselves into this entire life, kids and all. You got to watch it, right? We got to watch what we're saying, our language, or how we talk, how we speak on other people. We could speak life into someone, right? We talked about the power of the tongue, right? Book you want to get, Four Agreements about Don Miguel Ruiz. What to say when what to say when I talk to myself. I believe that's the term. I may revisit my book selection towards the end of the broadcast. But that's it. You see what I'm saying? Get our language together, because then we'll understand that everything that we're going through is part of it, and that we need to practice patience, that it takes a long ass time sometimes for success, and that we're going to have to make a lot of mistakes, right? We're not coming out the gate. We're not the 20-some-year-old Harvard prodigy. We're just not like that. I'm going to just make a gang of mistakes. I'm going to make some bullshit brands. I'm going to make some brands that don't work. I'm going to make some busted brands. I'm going to make some brands the last 5 years. And hopefully at some point, I hit something. But I'm on some 50 Cent shit right now. You know what I'm saying? Get rich or die trying. And like I told my wife the other day, I said, one of the things that we working on is, I told her, I said, just like this, I said, I don't know who, I don't know when, I said, but one of these businesses that we start, our kids are going to take it to a next level. And it may not even be them. It may be their kids or their kids' kids. I said, but I'm starting with intention right now, setting these things up, whether they look successful or not, because even when you look at some of the businesses back in the day, they didn't look successful. They didn't say, oh, this is, they was just doing what they had to do to keep something popping. And that's what we're doing right now. Doing what we have to do. We was cooking chicken this weekend. And I caught pictures. I was trying to catch it because I know what this is. I'm in the moment, but I understand what this is. Even when we make mistakes on that, we done made salty batches. We done made batches without enough salt. We done overcooked some chicken. We done undercooked some chicken. I remember our first time undercooking chicken. We was like, damn, messed up on that one. But how do you get better? I'm pretty sure Colonel Sanders, you watch his stuff, they messed up on chicken constantly. Taco Bell didn't have the recipe right out the gate. This is part of the process, home. You have to go through it. How else are you going to learn? How is you going to gain a skill if you ace every test? You're going to be like, I don't have to take a test. One of the things about being overconfident, and this is the deal with a lot of people, even with that speaking of overconfidence, is when you're overconfident, you're more likely to make mistakes, right? More likely to make mistakes. So if we think we know something, we think we're polished, and we think we don't have to study, we're more likely to make a mistake. So it makes more sense for us to sit down and go through the process of reading and studying up on whatever it is we're trying to do. So corporate credit, for example, something that we constantly are trying to work on, right? They're constantly trying to build on. And that's perfect for us. But there's a process and there's mistakes that you can make in that process, right? You can get too many cards. You can have your credits leveraged the wrong way, right? Have too much debt. So there's different mistakes that you can make as a business, but this is the real key that I want everybody to really, really understand. You can overcome most and all mistakes. Overcome them. Meaning that you can get back. I've seen homies that got L's for hot ones coming back. Now they got a different kind of karma to deal with. But I've seen it happen, right? So you can come back from damn near anything, right? Mistakes. This is what this whole podcast is about. Drug dealers to businessmen. It's really about redemption, right? Flipping your life around. So one of our biggest mistakes was selling D, right? It was a trap for us. wasn't the best thing. I just posted a video, funny video on the page if you haven't checked it out. But it talked about that, how drug dealing wasn't even sexy no more. Females wasn't even on it, right? We were dangerous, guns, no credit, all kind of stuff. But it was funny and it's real. The mistakes that we made, we need to grow from that, right? We're seasoned, right? We're veterans, we've been in the streets, whatever the case may be. But we got to grow from our mistakes, right? Because we're not that same youngster anymore. We're not that same, and we've got to think long term now, right? I was telling my wife the other day, you know what? I see people constantly going to clubs. Somebody was just out here, Beverly Hills or something like that. 3 females got killed. I said, man, before I go to a club, I'm at a library, period. Before I go to a house party, I'm at a library, period. That's just where I am now. I feel like I can get more out of that. I'm starting to manage my time. If I want to get better, right? If I want to get better, then I have to do better things. I can't do the same type of things. I can't hang around the same cats if I'm trying to get better. If ain't nobody, like, I need to be around people that's talking, whether they my friends or not. I just need to be around that kind of conversation, okay? PhD conversation, because that's where I'm at. That's what I'm on. I'm reading articles pretty much every night in the areas that I'm trying to go to, really trying to fine tune the type of research that I want to do. I made mistakes on that, right? Just teaching and not really looking at what I was actually doing. But 5 years in the game, now I'm switching that. Now I'm looking at things a little bit different. So I'm constantly evolving. If you think you know me, your best bet is to talk to me tomorrow, right? Because I'm constantly changing, constantly, right? Because we learn from our mistakes. We learn that may not have been the best path for this. And I admit them. That's one thing I do, is come on here to admit my mistakes, where I messed up, right? Not trusting people, not hiring enough people. There's other things that we've done that were mistakes. And one of the things about mistakes is that they're relatable. Everybody makes them. So sometimes when you're more vulnerable and you put those out there as opposed to your successes and victories, I could put that out there, man, I just did this, I just did that. But that's not what we connect. What we connect is that vulnerability, right? What we connect is, oh, damn, you did that too, D? Yeah, I did that. Okay. I thought I was the only one. Ah, homie. I did that too. That's what I'm trying to tell my son. I'm like, you ain't the only one, so you ain't got to lie about it, dog. So our mistakes, you ain't got to lie about it. We've been brought, I tell people, my car been repoed 2 or 3 times. Go downstairs, and we live in Playa del Rey, player, snatched. Because we were struggling, right? We were. It's just, it is what it is. So that's relatable. I could talk about, yeah, I used to work for Stevie Wonder, da 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 da. That's not relatable. That's BS. So that's not, who's that gonna help? Who can relate to that? Oh man, you see my diamonds? Ah, yeah, that's not relatable though, homie. Got my diamonds took. Me too, man. I like to pawn mine. Somebody broke into my house. Boop, boop, boop. You can go on. And what's the more relatable point? Not the success. Not the do you see my shit? It's in that vulnerable point. It's the mistake. Trusting somebody you shouldn't have. Having somebody up in your Kool-Aid that shouldn't be in it, right? I had to learn that the hard way a couple of times. But it was in the times that I'm growing. That's what made me seasoned. Like, man, your game is tight. It is now. It wasn't always tight, but it is now. And that's the thing, right? How do we get game tight? You get to the pen, there's certain mistakes that you make. Ah, well, you know, doing this, doing that, you mingling. I see cats out there. Certain way you move in there. Certain way you move on the streets, right? Don't have nobody at your house and sell nothing from your, you know, certain things, right? It ain't the Biggie 10 crack commandments, that's some other shit. But just moving like a D-boy, that's different. You dig what I'm saying? So that's, but we made mistakes doing that. We made mistakes. If I was to do it over again, I wouldn't have no rims. You wouldn't even you wouldn't even know I had it. Trust me. You wouldn't know I had it at all. Nobody would know but the people that should know, and they wouldn't even know. That's how I would do it, right? I would do it completely different. Ain't no stunt. I don't need to stunt. Low key with all mine. You know what I'm saying? And staying off the radar. That would be the key because you understand there's levels to that. But we had to make those mistakes, right? Got the house full throttle popping. We was in out. I mean, crack house. I've been doing that since I was in high school. Promise you. Tell no lies. There's probably cats on the podcast right now that could verify that. So I don't have to lie about that part, right? But that was a mistake. Why? Because I should have been doing other stuff. I should have been spending that time on here. I am spending 4 or 5 years in doing something that don't even matter when I could have been putting that towards something that actually can benefit me now. But we don't do hindsight. We don't go backwards. We don't do regrets. None of that stuff. It's all part of the process. So what do we do now, right? What do we do with our combination mistakes, which is our life? Because we're just a culmination of our mistakes and what we learn from, right? So you see some people in different parts of their life where you still ain't learned yet, right? You still ain't learned that thing. That's why you still there, right? You still ain't learned this thing. That's why you still in that position. Still ain't learned this thing. That's why you still in that position. You keep making the same mistakes over and over again. I see females, dudes, and all that picking the same type of female. You ain't learned your lesson. Oh, I like these kind. Okay, but they keep whooping your ass. Well, okay, well, you keep making the same mistake over and over again. It is what it is. You're going to keep getting the same results. But when you tighten that up, and say, you know what, okay, not twice. All you have to tell me is once. I get it. I heard you. Won't happen again. Right? Tickets. How do you think law, right? I used to get tickets on the bus. All they had to do, I had to make my mistake. It cost me, I think, $60. I was like, that's a $60 mistake that I'm not going to keep paying for. So some mistakes, right? You don't mind. Okay, I keep making that mistake. My jump shot is a little bit off. I'm gonna keep my arm straight. Okay, that may not be that big of a deal, but some are gonna cost you a little bit more. Some may be fines. Oh, I didn't do my taxes. Okay, well there's consequences for that to make sure you don't keep making the same mistake. So we need to embrace our our flaws, if you will, right? We got to embrace this. This is part of us. This is what makes us who we are as individuals. We don't need to be scared of our mistakes. I see some people like, man, they're so scared of making mistakes that they're willing to lie about it. That's scary. We're all human, dog. All right? Mistakes and patience, man. Mistakes because we're going to make them, and patience because that's what it's going to take for us to really understand and blossom into who we are. Mistakes and patience. That's it. That's part of our success recipe. That's part of the formula for success. Failure is all up in there too, right? Mistakes and failure are relatives. If y'all didn't know. So they stay with each other, they round each other, mistakes and failures, right? But they all part of success and they all fall under that umbrella. So if you do want to be successful in life, if you do want to make a difference in your family's life, go make some right mistakes, right? Like that guy, what's his name? Oh man, I can't think of civil rights. We called it good trouble. Go make some good mistakes. Go poke the box. Go try something. Doesn't matter, right? Don't put yourself in a financial hole, but try something. Oh, okay, well, don't make it ain't fatal, man. I learned from that. Learned my gas tank. I learned a few different things, right? So let's do that, man. I'm about to try to make some mistakes. I'm gonna try something. I'm trying chicken sandwich, different things, right? And seeing if they're gonna actually work. Because some things will stick. Most of them won't, which is why you got to try a lot of stuff. What am I reading right now? I am reading Everything Man, right? It's not in my Audible, but I will pull it up. It's called Everything Man. And I'm pulling it up, you guys, just for those who are wondering what I'm doing. Hold on, make sure I get it. All right, Yeah, I got it. I'll pull it up right now so I can show you guys, man. And if you got questions, make sure you guys can answer them in the chat. I will put her in there. Let's see. Here we go. So I'm reading a biography of Paul Robeson. If anybody remembers and knows about Paul Robeson, he was supposed to be one of the most interesting men of the 20th century, so early 1900s, things like that. He was an actor, orator, um, athlete, attorney, um, singer, producer, you name it. The brother did it, but he got blackballed. So and I'm reading that. The reason why I'm really stressing the reading is because I'm really working on my vocabulary. So that's something that I've been working on for a long time, and I'm still kind of really being a little bit more adamant about nowadays. So I'm trying to read everything I can get my hands on. So I'm always reading, which is why you see me with this shirt. Always be reading. Oh, this is all. Yeah, always be reading. Or always be learning. That's what I'm on right now, dog. That's it. Nothing else, right? Exercise, exercising your mind, um, and exercising your tongue, because there's so much power in that. That will conclude our weekly tap in for this week. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Those who are just joining us, like I said, man, make sure you guys check us out um, on YouTube. If you haven't hit the subscribe, hit it right down there so that you don't miss another episode. Leave us a review on iTunes. We certainly do appreciate that. We'll see you guys next week. Just remember, you are what you read. So let's get reading. Tapping out.